Catholic in America. We reveal our exclusive poll numbers about the issues most important to the faithful in next month's elections. Battleground state. We're in Missouri with a report on how pro-life issues are impacting the state's Senate race. Defending the unborn. Pope Francis strikes back using some of his strongest language yet to denounce abortion. We're at the Vatican. And on the big screen, the director of an EWTN movie about an Irish priest killed in World War I joins us on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, October 10th, 2018. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. With just 27 days until Americans head to the polls for the midterms, EWTN News Nightly is covering the country, taking a look at Catholic voters and touring battleground states. We're focusing on issues motivating those voters. EWTN News Nightly's exclusive Catholic in America poll breaks down what Catholics are paying attention to and tells us how likely they are to vote. Here's who we surveyed: 1,000 people who identified themselves as Catholics from all regions of the country. 51% attend Mass regularly, a third attend Mass weekly, 54% are female, 24% are between the ages of 41 and 55. Now, Catholics make up almost a fourth of the electorate, and our exclusive poll sheds light on the importance of that voting bloc. We wanted to know what Catholic turnout is expected to be this November. So we asked. 87% told us that they are likely to vote. And for weekly churchgoers, 96% say they are likely to head to the polls. Now, Missouri is one of the key states that will determine who controls the U.S. Senate. Pro-lifers are targeting Democrat Claire McCaskill. Polls show she's neck and neck with her Republican opponent, Attorney General Josh Hawley. Correspondent Jason Calvi is in Columbia, Missouri tonight, taking the pulse of Catholic voters. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. Senator McCaskill has voted against the 20-week abortion ban twice, but laws here in Missouri have forced 4 of its 5 abortion clinics to close, including this very one behind me. Now, for 40 days before the election, these people are out here praying for the protection of human life in this swing state.
The message we're sending to the community this fall is life is precious, and we are just out here praying and offering help and hope to the moms who come here, and that is our message of love and peace to the people here in Columbia.
Abortion is weighing on the hearts of Catholics. EWTN's national poll by McLaughlin and Associates finds here in the Midwest, 65% of Catholics are concerned about abortion. But that number's low when we look at other parts of the country. In the South Atlantic region, 80% of Catholics view abortion as an important issue. Now, Missouri now only has 1 abortion clinic in operation. State law requires clinics to meet the standards of surgical clinics, and abortion doctors must have admitting privileges at local hospitals. Now, because of that, this Planned Parenthood in this college town of Columbia has stopped performing abortions. Lauren?
What other issues are gaining traction in Missouri, Jason?
Well, like in many parts of the country, the economy is a major factor. This state has a big farming business, and there could be some worries about President Trump's tariffs. He did win this state by 18 points in 2016, and for Catholics, it may be different. Kantar Media has reviewed national and local media across the country, and they find that the most frequently occurring Catholic angle story is on abortion. Lauren?
And that is for, again, EWTN News Nightly, Kantar conducting that research on our behalf. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi in Missouri. Thank you, Jason. Coming up later in the program, the Daily Wire's Michael Knowles analyzes the Catholic vote and how it will affect the midterms. President Trump says patients across America deserve access to affordable medication, and today he signed legislation that the White House says will help give patients more information to save on prescription drugs. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. It's one of the rare times in Washington we see legislation pass with wide bipartisan support, and pharmacists believe this law could help patients save money at the drug counter.
The price of prescription drugs, it's way out of whack, it's way too high.
With the president's signature today, drug prices could be cut at the pharmacy thanks to a new law.
The Patient Right to Know Drug Prices Act. And obviously, based on the name, you can tell that this gives people knowledge as to prices at different locations, where to buy the drugs. That will have an immediate impact.
At today's signing, Doug Hoye, the CEO of National Community Pharmacist Association. His group advocates for thousands of pharmacists across the country.
This bill will unshackle pharmacists.
And depending on the medication, Hoye says savings for customers could be enormous. The new law will allow pharmacists to speak freely with patients about lower-cost drug options, removing the so-called gag clause insurance companies could impose.
Well, before there's always the threat of intimidation. A lot of pharmacists would go ahead and talk to patients despite the fear of retaliation from insurance companies that would subtly or not so subtly threaten to kick them out of the network if they told patients too much.
The legislation President Trump signed today passed with sweeping bipartisan support. Only 2 senators voted against it, Republicans Rand Paul of Kentucky and Mike Lee of Utah. A spokesperson for Lee tells News Nightly the senator supports pharmacies being transparent with customers and believes gag clauses should be removed from federal health care plans like Medicare, but he did not support this bill because, quote, Senator Lee does not support federal regulation of what should be state-regulated health insurance plans. Over 40 healthcare-related groups came out in support of the legislation. The National Community of Pharmacists Association says much work still needs to be done to lower drug costs, but this is a good first step. Lauren?
Mark Irons reporting from the White House. Thank you, Mark. The world's top diplomats are thanking U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley for her work at the United Nations. She is also receiving praise from groups who advocate for religious freedom. Many admit they were surprised by her sudden announcement that she's stepping down at the end of the year. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reports from the State Department this evening. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Secretary Mike Pompeo says Ambassador Haley has been a great partner for the last 5 months since he's been in charge of this department. Haley is one of the most popular members of the Trump administration and among her colleagues at the United Nations.
It was a blessing to go into the UN with body armor every day and defend America. And I'll always do that. I'll never truly step aside from fighting for our country.
President Trump and fellow diplomats agree that Nikki Haley is a fighter.
As the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, I have encountered a whole new world.
In the last 2 years, the former South Carolina governor helped implement the president's shift in U.S. foreign policy. That includes tough stances on issues like migration, abortion, and climate change. Anthony Arend is at Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service.
She did have a real appreciation for multilateralism and international institutions. She also was very strong on sanctions against Russia.
But Haley still earned the respect of the Russian ambassador.
I regret that she's leaving because we had good working and personal relations despite all the differences that we were and are having.
Some countries, including the Holy See, disagreed with Haley's support for moving the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. They also disagree with the administration's decision not to accept as many refugees into the U.S. as in years past. However, Archbishop Bernardito Auza, the Pope's representative at the UN, thanked Haley for her strong support of religious freedom. Haley highlighted the plight of Christians in the Middle East in September at a UN event on the persecution of religious minorities.
Whether we look at Christians, which the vice president's really trying to focus on the UN money and making sure that Christian minorities get that, or whether it's on any other minority that needs help with religion, freedom of religion, we believe that our voice needs to be heard and it needs to be loud.
Members of the Holy See's mission to the UN have also noted Nikki Haley's support for pro-life initiatives. The Family Research Council, a conservative Christian activist group, calls her an agent of change, standing up for what they call true human rights, like religious freedom. Lauren?
Wyatt, is there any word on who might replace Haley as ambassador?
The president says he's considering 5 candidates for Haley's job, and that successor could be named within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Among those is former Deputy National Security Advisor Dina Powell. Yesterday, the president also mentioned his daughter, Ivanka Trump, would be incredible as the next UN ambassador, but today she responded in a tweet saying it will not be her.
No,
Lauren?
thank you. All right, correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reporting from the State Department. Hurricane Michael makes landfall in Florida with winds of 155 miles per hour. It has gone from a tropical storm to a near Category 5 hurricane and appears to have caught thousands of people off guard. A priest in California is suspended following a credible accusation of sexual misconduct. The charge against Father Justin Longeel dates from the 1990s. The 65-year-old denies the claim. But the diocese says a recent review turned up new information that undermined the priest's denial. Pope Francis compares abortion to a mafia-style killing.
Interrompere la gravidanza significa fare fuori uno direttamente.
The Holy Father says it's the equivalent of hiring a hitman to take out a human life to solve a problem. Francis made the comments during his weekly audience. It was dedicated to the 5th commandment, thou shalt not kill. Vatican correspondent Juliette Lindley joins us from Rome. Juliette, these comments are among the Pope's strongest yet against abortion. Tell us about them.
Lauren, the Holy Father says some people might justify abortion as respecting another person's rights, but he asked, how can an act that suppresses innocent and defenseless life be considered therapeutic, civil, or even human? He said that is categorically not fair. The Pope said, quote, we cannot take out a human being even if it is small. He said the 5th commandment must be our guide, and we cannot pay someone to kill a human being in order to get rid of a perceived problem, in this case, a woman's unwanted pregnancy.
The Holy Father does not pull punches. He does not shy away from using harsh language. It's not the first time he has said that he is against abortion in such shocking terms, is it?
Indeed. So, Lauren, this was the second time in very recent months that Francis has done so. In June, he denounced how some couples use prenatal testing to see if their baby has a malformation, and then they choose to abort. He says such practices are tantamount to Nazi-era eugenics. And Francis has framed both abortion and euthanasia as part of what he calls today's throwaway culture, a culture in which the unborn, as well as the elderly, the sick, and those who live in poverty are considered unworthy of protection and dignity.
These comments come during this 3-week synod, a meeting of bishops from around the world focusing on young people. And I know that sexuality, including premarital sex, is among the topics of discussion. Do you think that abortion is scheduled to be on the agenda?
Lauren, so far it hasn't, and Cardinal Carlos Aguiarretes, Archbishop of Mexico City, was asked that question today during a press briefing. And Aguiar, who's taking part in discussions, said, let's go back to 1948 and the UN's Declaration of Human Rights. He said it is a universal declaration that applies to all human beings, and the basic right to life is a basic human right. So the Cardinal underlined the fact that a woman's potential right to abortion can never supersede the human right to life. Lauren.
Juliette Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent with the Pope's very strong words on abortion. Thank you, Juliette.
Thank you, Lauren.
2 pro-life activists are challenging Australia's buffer zone laws before the nation's highest court. They say the rules banning protests within 500 feet of abortion clinics violate freedom of speech. Pro-abortion campaigners say the ban protects women from being intimidated. Britain's Supreme Court rules in favor of a bakery owned by a Christian family that refused to make a cake supporting same-sex marriage. Asher's Bakery in Northern Ireland argued it should not be forced to use a slogan that went against its beliefs. The court agreed. Co-owner Daniel MacArthur says God has been with him during this legal battle. Family and friends are mourning the loss of an outspoken critic of Venezuela's socialist government. Fernando Alban was arrested last week and died suspiciously. Authorities say he threw himself from the 10th floor of a police building. But the Catholic leaders say the political dissident was tortured and murdered. Alban was being held for his alleged involvement in the attempted assassination of President Nicolas Maduro last August. President Trump is demanding answers from Saudi Arabia after a missing journalist. Jamal Khashoggi has not been seen since he entered the Saudi diplomatic mission in Istanbul last week. Turkish authorities say he was killed inside the building. Khashoggi was a writer for the Washington Post and often criticized the Saudi government. There is plenty more on the show coming up tonight. Analysis of what effect the Catholic vote will have on next month's midterms. As we told you earlier in our broadcast, 87% of Catholics surveyed in our exclusive EWTN News Nightly poll are planning to vote in the upcoming midterm elections. And when asked about their previous voting habits, 79% said that they usually vote when there is a general congressional election. That's a difference of 8% between other election years and this one. Joining me now by Skype from Los Angeles is Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire and host of The Michael Knowles Show. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Let's break down these numbers. Our poll drives home the fact that voting is a high priority for Catholics. But how important will the Catholic vote be for this year's midterm elections?
Well, we saw, unlike the past two or the previous two presidential elections, President Trump appears to have won the Catholic vote in 2016, according to Pew Research. Catholics broke for Al Gore in 2000. They voted for Barack Obama twice, and yet they broke for Trump in 2016. I wonder how much these religious liberty issues play into that. You know, the Obama administration and Democrats broadly have waged a war on religious liberty. There was one point at which the Obama administration was actually fighting against the Little Sisters of the Poor.
Yes, we've
not
covered
a good
that
opponent
extensively.
to take on.
Yes,
Yeah.
as you can imagine, we've covered that. And Vice President Mike Pence has come out and really fought not just for religious liberty here in the United States, but also abroad. When we asked Catholics whether, generally speaking, they thought things in the country are going in the right direction or if they're on the wrong track, let me tell you, 39% of Catholics said the country was going in the right direction. 53% said, wrong track. What do you think accounts for that difference?
Well, we Catholics have a long historical view, so we always think things are going poorly. But when you look around, with a little, grace, it does appear that the economy is doing much better. Joblessness is at record lows. The world is at relative peace. These are all good things. So then I think what it comes down to are these fundamental issues. Dante puts into the first circle of hell the apathetic, people who don't pick a side. I'm very pleased that voter enthusiasm is up broadly and up among Catholics. And you have to look at that vote as well. 39% of American Catholics don't go to church. I think actually that number may be even higher. We know that Catholics are split on what should be clear moral issues. 50-50, 47-47. So one wonders exactly how orthodox some of that Catholic vote is. But we should take that lesson from Dante when there are great moral questions in the world. Well, we can't stand in the middle of the road. You'll get hit by a truck. You have to pick a side. And it seems to me, you certainly know my point of view from the Catholic perspective for questions like religious liberty, for abortion, and just for the overall state of the country, material prosperity, and a feeling of moving in the right direction. The expansion of liberty. It seems to me that Republicans have the advantage.
In our poll, which we are going to be putting up online, we did survey all of those Catholics and broke them down into those who are regular churchgoers or weekly churchgoers and those who just are Christmas and Easter and don't go at all. And the differences are really striking in what the regular, weekly, on daily Catholics say about these issues. Now, when we're talking about abortion, 71% who responded, all of Catholics who responded, said it's something that they're concerned about. How significant a factor do you think a candidate's position on abortion is going to be as voters head to the polls?
Well, I think you're going to see it reflected mostly in the judges. I mean, this crazy Kavanaugh circus that we've gone through for the last 2 weeks, the claims and allegations without any corroboration. What it really comes down to is the question of Roe versus Wade, the question of abortion. Is that question to be decided by the people or the states, or is that question to be decided by 9 robed judges and lawyers who invent a fictional constitutional right to abortion? I think that's where you see it, because the question of abortion is obviously so important, but it also gets to our liberty, our religious liberty and our political liberty. Who has the right to govern us? And President Trump has done wonderfully in getting these judges through, and we need to hold the Senate if we're going to get more judges onto the bench.
Wish we had time for more. Thank you so much, Michael Knowles, host of The Michael Knowles Show. Come back and tell us more about your Catholic perspective.
Thanks for having me.
Lots more to come on our newscast tonight. Up next, we'll talk with the director of a movie about an Irish priest that's being shown at the Vatican, plus a blue ribbon achievement for nationwide Catholic schools. The directors of a new movie about abortion, Dr. Kermit Gosnell, say its lead actor is being bullied. Dean Cain, who plays a detective investigating Gosnell, was on our show last week. He's allegedly being attacked by, quote, Hollywood bullies and Twitter mobs. That includes being confronted by comedian Tom Arnold. Gosnell, the trial of America's biggest serial killer, opens Friday in 600 theaters across the country. A big honor for our EWTN family, a special screening of a movie at the Vatican this Friday. Bravery Under Fire tells the heroic story of Father Willie Doyle, the Irish Jesuit, as a chaplain in the British Army during World War II. The film premiered on EWTN in August. Campbell Miller, the film's director, joins us now from Rome. Campbell is head of television for EWTN Ireland. Campbell, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Lauren. It's great to be here.
Tell us about Father Willie Doyle and what inspired you to make this film.
Father Willie Doyle was an Irish Jesuit priest. He joined the British Army in 1915. He wanted to be there out in the front line with the men. That's something that he believed the men out there really needed a chaplain. They really needed somebody that would bring them to Christ. And they were going through horrific conditions out there on the front line, you know, with bullets and explosions and that. And some of the men needed him to go out and bring them back to safety. Others, he would go out into no man's land, lie down there beside them and give them the last rites and stay there until they passed away. So I first heard about this remarkable individual when I was sent an interview of Dr. Pat Kenny. And Dr. Pat Kenny at the time was reading one of Father Willie's letters.
And what reaction has it received?
Yeah, the film has got great reaction online. There has been many people have been contacting us through Twitter and Facebook and telling us that how much they loved the drama and that it really depicted Father Willie's life, which is absolutely amazing. But also we had parishes asking us if we could come along and do special screenings and see if it's possible to do a talk and tell them more about Father Willie and what he was called to do.
Well, now what's next for him?
Leading on from that, we have actually...
Let's move on to what's next for him. In 1938, Father Willie Doyle's cause for canonization was put forward, but seems to have languished. You met the Holy Father today. Did you mention it?
That's right. We were very lucky to meet the Holy Father this morning. And yes, in 1938, it all seemed to die a death. We heard no more about Father Willie Doyle's canonization. But what we spoke to the Holy Father about was, well, here's a man that had given up his life for others. And he followed the teachings of Jesus Christ. And that is a new plan, a new route to canonization that Pope Francis actually had set out for us. So we're hoping that the powers to be, can actually do something about this and reopen those files and look at Father Willie and the possibility of his canonization.
So the Holy Father said he'll get right on it.
He said he would get right on it. I think his top men are looking into it right now.
Okay. All right. Well, Campbell, it was great to talk to you. Thank you so much. If you haven't had a chance yet, make sure you watch Bravery Under Fire.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
Finally, tonight, the Department of Education has awarded the 2018 National Blue Ribbon to more than 340 schools. On that list are nearly 50 private schools, and 90% of those schools are Catholic.
A mayor, 100, nothing less.
The Catholic schools will be honored next month at an awards ceremony. They were recognized as, quote, exemplary high-performing schools. And all of this just reaffirms the hard work of Catholic educators, families, and communities. And I happen to know that we have one right in our very neighborhood. That's Little Flower Catholic School in Bethesda, Maryland. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Let's keep in touch online. Follow me at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and Lauren Ashburn EWTN on Facebook. Good night, and God bless you.